Meeting Wednesday, September 14th, 2022 is called to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the Secretary please note the roll?
Commissioner Sambito is present, Commissioner Hegedus is present, Commissioner Hamilton is present, Commissioner Wang is present, Vice Chairman Clymer is present, Chairman Kish is present, Commissioner Booth is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to please excuse Commissioner Booth on an extenuating circumstance?
I so move.
I have a motion and a second. Please enter your vote.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 1 is to approve the draft minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on August 17th, 2022. Can I have a motion and a second? Please enter your vote.
Motion passes.
Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any non-agenda agenda items. Are there any speaker cards?
Not for non-agenda items.
Where would you fill one of those out at?
Did you want to speak on a non-agenda item? I do. Okay. You can go ahead and go up to the podium, and then once you're done, I can have you fill out a speaker card, and they're in the back there on that little.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
No, it's okay.
Good evening.
Hi, Commissioner Kish and members of the board. I just wanted to use my time quickly to go over with you agenda items actually for next month, as you'll be considering them before this, and that's 22-350-00002 and 00005, which is the McDonald's and the self-storage at the corner of Sarval and Indian School. And so I know that the development board has recommended that project move forward over the opposition from residents in the neighborhood at the last public meeting. And so for some things for you to consider as you are doing this, there are no McDonald's on a soft corner in all of Goodyear. Every McDonald's is on a hard corner anchored by a grocery tenant. This is a residential neighborhood. There are no self-storage facilities with RV parking next to a residential subdivision. The wind in that area blows easterly. Now, they put in their notes that they would be doing a scrubbing, an odor scrubbing deal. But if you live close to a fast food, in fact, the other pad that's next to it would also be a drive-through, which there are no drive-throughs bordering a residential subdivision. So just to let you know, the council had already varied from the original PV 303 plan by putting the UPS and the Best Buy warehouses in that area. It's all zoned for commercial because of the overflight. However, because the neighborhood is more than 500 feet away from those parcels, no one was notified that there would be a 200,000 square foot building or more with truck traffic 24 hours a day, 1,000 feet from our neighborhood. And now you all are going to have the opportunity to approve a 24-hour-a-day McDonald's, which is not, the developer owns land still in front of the Refinery Church at the corner of the 303 and Indian School. That would be a more than able place to put a McDonald's. You can't see the corner of Sarval and Indian School from the 303. So I was told that we would be protected by the light ordinances. However, they would need a large sign to be able to have traffic from the 303 to come a mile and a half in to go to McDonald's. So as you're considering and as you're reading through the materials from the developer, please note that we will be emailing and continue to email our opposition to this project, and that the neighborhood, there's 130 homes just in the small subdivision right next to this project. There are more than 100 people, if we can have them, will be here to oppose the project. So I think my time is 45 seconds. So, and have you heard about this project, or do you know about this project? Is there any questions that you would have from the neighbors?
I have heard about it. We will.
Can't have a discussion? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry. But again, we will be here. My wife was at the last meeting. A friend and client of mine that's a developer that does similar projects like this across the country, told me, hey, if I had seen this type of opposition at a first neighborhood meeting, I would have I'll walk away from the project because it is just, there's too much opposition and it'll be too much of a headache. So we'll look into all of our options if the time comes, if it does. However, we will be here in force next month to oppose the project.
Thank you for your time.
So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So fill one out up there. Perfect. Thank you for your time.
Are there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? This is the opportunity for commission members to disclose any ex parte communications that they may have had prior to this meeting on any scheduled for discussion on this agenda. Has anyone had any ex parte communication? Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 2 is a Lincoln rezone. I'm going to open the public hearing. Principal Planner Christian Williams will introduce a request for this item to be tabled. Yes.
Good evening, Commissioner. That is correct. I'm here before you this evening with a request from Taylor Earl to conduct a rezoning on a property within the city. However, the applicant has asked that we continue this item to a date non-certain. So my request would be to not provide a presentation, but to have you open the hearing and table the item.
I need a motion and a second.
And before I get a motion and a second, I'd just like to ask the attorney, I do have a speaker card on this item. I just wanted
Sorry, we just wanted to check, so you're re-advertising the item since it's...
Yes, the item will be re-advertised to the public, and the new date would be advertised to the public for this item to be considered, if it is to be considered.
Okay.
Thank you.
New materials to be
Sorry
provided
to-
as well.
I want to
Just
make
wanted
sure.
to confirm.
Sorry,
Moving forward.
I put it on my slide, but we will provide update to the residents, we'll update the staff reports, the materials, and then we will also send out, update the signs, send out the postcards to everyone within 500 feet. things like
Okay, so at this point, we will hear those those points at the next meeting, is that correct? Okay. All right, thank you. So I would like to have a motion and a second.
Motion to table this item?
Second, and then please enter your votes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is the Vlux rezone, and I'll open the public hearing. Principal Planner Christian Williams will present.
All righty. Good evening. So this request is to rezone a property within the city. The request comes from Andy Yoakum and Paul Gilbert, and we will talk about that property on the next slide. So to remind you, let's see, how do I do this? New here. So to remind you of the property's context within greater Ballpark Village area, it's shown on the map. It is located, can you see my mouse? Oh, you guys can't see my mouse. It is at the southwest corner of Estrella Parkway and Yuma Road. And as you'll recall, a couple months ago, I told you some more zoning cases would be coming in this area this fall. So it is fall, so here we are. This was the final privately owned corner at the intersection of Estrella Parkway and Yuma Road that has not sought a rezone within the last year. And they seek to move from one of the 4 city center zoning categories to a new zoning category for the development of Vlux at Ballpark Village. The property is approximately 51 acres in central Goodyear within our Ballpark Village, located at the southwest corner of Estrella and Yuma. The property's underlying zoning is PAD with an underlying category of retail and residential, and the property is located in the box in the middle of my screen that is in a red. It's in red and it has a star on it. I would point to it on the mouse, but we don't use the mouse anymore. All right. So we'll zoom in a little closer. Zooming in a little closer, there's the property again. It's on the left side in that red area, or on the right side in the teal area. North of the property is a vacant property, which is owned by the city of Goodyear. South and west of the property is the Estrella Vista single-family subdivision. And east of the property is the Fulton Homes at Ballpark Village development, which is vacant, but under staff review. As a note, this property does not fall within the Goodyear Airport DNL lines or noise area. For a quick zoning history, 2007, Goodyear Ballpark and Ballpark Village was first zoned. In 2008, an ordinance was approved to zone this 51-acre property to the southwest city center area. Again, the underlying zoning was residential and retail. And as a note, this property could have had as much as 2,063 units on it, or 40 units per acre of residential and 70,000 square foot of retail. And if you'll recall from other rezoning cases in 2021, in response to the City Hall being moved north of the Interstate 10 and other development pattern changes in the area, a major general plan amendment was approved at the end of 2021, which subsequently changed the general plan land use category for this property to neighborhoods with the village center overlay on top of it, and subsequently you've seen a lot of rezonings occur within this area. So as it relates to multifamily development that is south of the Interstate 10, north of Future 30, Perryville on the west, and Dicer on the east, there are 13 established multifamily communities. One of those is for the baseball team, 8 are traditional garden style, and 4 are single-family rental. Those are shown in orange. In purple, there are 9 under development or recently approved. 4 will be garden style, 5 will be single-family rental style. And shown in orange are 20 properties that are entitled for multifamily today. 10 are likely to be single-family rental, 8 are or townhouse-style rental. 8 are likely to be garden style, and 1 is senior or age-targeted, and 1 is a mix of product. That would be the Anton case. And then shown in blue is the star on the map. That is the case we're talking about today. So the applicant is requesting to rezone this property to MF18 with a PAD overlay to facilitate the development of 3 types of product: stacked flat style, townhouse style, and cottage style apartments. And that will be all in one parcel. If you'll recall the Anton case we had a couple months ago, you'll be reminded of the format in which this zoning case is coming before you today. This PAD overlay will require a minimum density of 14 units per acre on the north side, since that is within the village center overlay part of the development, and we want there's a desire for higher density and pedestrian-friendly development within those types of zones. The overall density on this project would not exceed 18 units per acre because its underlying zoning is MF18. So we are going from a property that's entitled for about 40 units per acre today to about 18 units an acre per day, or 18 units per acre today. So the PAD also would modify some standards, particularly their design elements of this project, and we will talk about the PAD overlay on the next slides. And I will note the renderings on this slide are conceptual in nature only. If the zoning is approved by you all today, it would then go into the administrative process for site plan review, and we would ensure that it follows the zoning that would be approved if it is approved. All right, so I'll highlight a couple things on this slide, and if I don't cover something you're interested in hearing, don't hesitate to ask, but I want to be brief. I don't want to read all day, but I can if you want me to. So we'll start with design guidelines. Traditional MF18 has to follow, or the design guidelines for traditional MF18 is typically made for 2 or 3 story product that looks like a townhouse or a larger scale apartment building. As we've discussed on the previous slide, they want to also mix in some of those cottage style units. So on this PAD, there will be distinguishing factors so that those single story units or those units that are potentially multi-story with one family living within it are designed to our MF12 standards, which have some additional guidelines and criteria so that those units look a little bit more unique and interesting. Also, what it does clarify is that in the middle of this parcel, this is a proposal they're showing, but in the middle of that parcel, if this parcel were to divide into multiple communities, that interior line, if it became an exterior line, would be considered more like an interior line because it's not facing a roadway. So the unit types along that line don't necessarily need to alternate every couple buildings and things of that nature. So it clarifies that that's going to be considered an interior line. Also talks about the colors, materials, variety of product that we expect within this neighborhood. As stated on the previous slide again, that entry road on the west, that's the Papago Street alignment. It's basically calling out in the PAD that the density above that line needs to be a minimum of 14 units per acre. Village center overlay, also so that this doesn't end up being an entire development of only single-story cottage-style units. We have some product diversity. It's a way to encourage that to occur when we get to the staff administrative level of a site plan review. Parking is also defined in here. A new product that some of these developers are interested in doing are garages in the unit. So what this would allow is, for example, on that picture on the top in the middle, you might have a garage, but you might have a driveway in front of it. It would allow us to count a tandem space as part of that package, so that's a parking space. But to make sure there's assurances that people will use that space and not use up the guest spaces, they would need to provide a parking plan as a caveat for us to be able to approve that. Patios and walls encroachment, so I'll touch on this a little bit. I'll use the image on the bottom right to illustrate that. In the PAD overlay, patios, encroachments would be allowed into the landscape setback along Estrella Parkway, Yuma Road, or Goodyear Boulevards. As a caveat to that, if that were to occur, view fencing would be required, and they would also need to provide pedestrian connections to the roadway. This acts almost as an incentive to get them to turn those units to face out, have view fencing so that, again, when you're entering the Ballpark Village area, there's not a lot of just solid wall surrounding the property. It's an incentive that if they turn those units around, they can encroach patios, pedestrian-oriented items towards the road and encroach up to 5 feet. Just to give you a little perspective, because this question did come up during the neighborhood meeting, the adjacent Estrella Vista neighborhood, those homes are about 35 feet from the curb of the Estrella Parkway roadway. If this change were to occur in this PAD, these units would still be 60 to 70 feet away from the curb of the roadway because there's still the landscaping that's inside of the roadway right-of-way, things of that nature. So these units will still be pushed back considerably from the roadway. The developer also codified minimum amenities. If a development came on this site that were developed as 2 or more multifamily developments, they would have to provide amenities of equal standing to all the residents on that property. So either the residents would have to have access to the amenities wherever they're located, or they'd have to duplicate those amenities. And then the PAD overlay also requires 6 pedestrian connections to Yuma Road, 7 pedestrian connections to Estrella Parkway, 3 pedestrian connections to Goodyear Boulevard South, and 4 pedestrian connections to Goodyear Boulevard West. Again, this is incentivizing that this is a more walkable area where residents can walk out of their doors, walk right into the commercial that's going to happen across the street or a ballpark game, and not have to get in their car and drive, around the site to get out. Also, the developer will be, as the other developments are doing, building a monument sign on the corner that will incorporate art. The theme they will be encouraged to utilize would be water, which was the original theme of the City Center Committee that when they put this plan into place for the area. I'll quickly talk about commercial because that's always a question that comes up when we're talking about converting retail or commercial lands to multifamily. This area in the ballpark area that I showed you has over 60 acres of commercially entitleable land. 53 of those acres are found right by the Goodyear Ballpark itself. 53 acres of that is there. 9.8 acres of that is at the Ballpark Village North site, directly catty corner from this site. That has 9.8 acres of commercial opportunity. We're aware that about 53,000 square feet of commercial is looking at coming into this area. And there's an upward possibility of between 200,000 square feet of commercial and 383,000 square feet of commercial if you look at the entitled lands in this area that have opportunity. For comparison, we're talking about 60 acres. Westgate Core is about 13 acres. If you add all the parking and everything, that's about 59 acres. Something like a Park West is 47 acres, and Scottsdale Court is 28 acres. So there's still a substantial amount of commercial opportunity within the Ballpark Village area, not even counting Serafina or Hudson Commons commercial. To date, the city has not received any formal resident opposition. However, residents have generally voiced their concerns for drive-through restaurants in the area, a lack of walkable retail, a desire for sit-down restaurants and dining options. They've stated they want more walkable public pedestrian connections and fewer walled-off developments as a focus for this area of Goodyear. Additionally, some residents have voiced support for a lower-density residential product at this location as a transition from Estrella Vista to the south and west to the higher densities to the north and to the east. Staff has evaluated the impacts of this proposed zoning to the greater community, and with no major concerns being found, staff recommends you forward an approval recommendation to rezone the property to a planned area development zoning district with an underlying zoning of MF18 with a PAD overlay entitled Vlux at Ballpark Village as set forth in the ordinance. As a note, the applicant will be making improvements to Yuma Road to add an eastbound travel lane, Estrella Parkway to add a southbound travel lane, relocating a signal at Estrella Parkway and Yuma Road, building and paying their share to improve Goodyear Boulevard West and Goodyear Boulevard South to a major collector, which is 2 lanes in each direction with a median, and paying the quarter of their share of a new signal to be installed at Yuma Road and Goodyear Boulevard West, where the current span wire signal exists today. The applicant is here, does not have a presentation, and I'm happy to take any zoning-related questions.
Are there any questions for Christian? As always, an excellent job, Christian. In regards to the homes, and I don't know if you can answer this or the applicant, will they have backyards?
In the zoning for MF18, they are required to have private yards that are at least 60 square feet in dimension, patios, balconies, things of that nature. Because of the way we wrote the zoning, the MF12 style units, if they build a unit that is 1 story in height or 2 stories with 1 unit, they would be required to construct a yard for those units at 200 square feet.
Will they have picket fences or see-through fences?
That would be determined at the time of design. So
Okay.
we'll make sure that those all look cohesive.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome. If they are built, though, along any of the roadways, we would require view fencing. So let's say they opt not to encroach into the landscape setback and do their units traditional style, we would require that a view fence, so 4 foot of CMU or solid block, 2 foot of view, so that, again, at least there's some views in the neighborhood and it's not completely walled off.
Excellent.
We have some other incentive language in there to give them some more view fencing, though.
All right. Are there any questions for the applicant? Would the applicant like to say anything to commission?
Good evening. I represent the applicant, Hancock Communities. My name is Paul Gilbert, 701 North 44th Street. I told Christian prior to the meeting that my goal was not to have to say anything. So, even though I'm paid by the word, that's quite a sacrifice. I do want to make one quick comment. We had a neighborhood meeting, and we had about 9-10 people there. One of those who attended the neighborhood meeting is here tonight. I think I know what he's going to say. But basically, the consensus of that neighborhood meeting, and that's very important as we reason together this evening, was they were in support. I specifically ended the meeting by asking, is there anyone here in opposition? And basically, no one raised their hand. So I think I feel very comfortable indicating to you that the neighborhood is not opposed to this. In fact, they're greatly relieved at the drastic reduction in density. One last comment. These stipulations are very detailed and very complex, frankly. But I want you to know that our office and representative of Hancock Communities has spent a lot of time working with Christian on these stipulations. So we're very familiar with them, and we can unequivocally tell you that we're in full support, having spent considerable time working through the details. With that, I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you. We want to make sure Hancock gets their money's worth tonight, right?
Yeah, thank you. I have a 7-page presentation that I'll send it to them in the mail, and then they'll know it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Are there any speaker cards on this topic tonight?
Yes. Alan Stark?
Good evening, Mr. Stark.
Good evening. Yeah, my name is Alan Stark. I've been a Goodyear resident since 2009. As you know, Christian did a great job explaining when this whole area, Yuma and Estrella, was changed to no longer be the city center back only in December of last year. The residents were told that we were going to get a village center overlay in this area to still make it a local destination for us with a little bit of shopping, maybe a nice sit-down restaurant, and some walkability. The general plan states designation of village centers is especially important in a community such as Goodyear, which is long and linear. It goes on to state the village center should be a destination, provide commercial, entertainment, and shopping opportunities for the surrounding neighborhoods in a pedestrian-oriented environment, and that mixed-use development is encouraged, and if you're going to do multifamily development, it should have strong ties to nearby commercial. This intersection, Yuma and Estrella, originally had over 62 acres of zoned land that allowed commercial to form. This Vlux development will be the third zoning case just this year that reduces that number. Assuming Vlux is approved, there will be less than 10 acres of privately owned commercial left in this so-called village center. The rest will be gated residential communities, a mix of apartments and single-family homes. There is only one full-service sit-down restaurant within an entire mile of this intersection, despite there now being 10 multifamily developments existing, under construction, or approved within that same mile radius. Please explain to me how the development being approved at Yuma and Estrella meets our general plan's definition of a village center. And you can't say there isn't the traffic to support commercial here. At Yuma and Estrella, the intersection, based on the City of Goodyear 2019 traffic study, has a count of 25,000 cars per day. That's not far behind Pebble Creek Parkway and McDowell at 29,000. Would we want a multifamily residential building placed on Pebble Creek and McDowell? Of course not. We don't want people living next to a busy intersection like that. So why here? Living south of I-10, I feel as though my area of town is being packed full of multifamily developments just to get the population numbers up so that the sit-down restaurants, shopping, and entertainment can be built north of I-10. There are currently 4 multifamily developments north of I-10 that are either under construction or have been approved by the City Council. South of I-10, there are a whopping 23. There are 37 full-service sit-down restaurants north of I-10, but only 14 in central Goodyear. That's despite central Goodyear having a higher population. In just the past 2 years alone, the city has significantly reduced zoned commercial in multiple areas south of I-10. Estrella and Yuma, as discussed, the entire east side of Estrella from I-10 all the way down to Van Buren and in the Canyon Trails Town Center. Yet we don't see this reduction in commercial north of I-10. Recognizing that more citizens live south of I-10 than do north, please do your part to ensure we get some quality restaurants and entertainment that we can walk to in our area so we live a healthy lifestyle. Make this into a true village center that abides by the recommendations of our general plan. I appreciate your time and thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Are there any other speaker cards on this issue?
Victor Patarozzi? Okay. Sorry.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, I'm doing fine, thank you. My name is Victor Patarozzi, a resident of Goodyear. As a matter of fact, I'm the vice president of the HOA that's adjacent to this place here. I'd like to know who actually made those next meetings, because it certainly wasn't anybody from the board to discuss this. But I want to thank the zoning commission for not putting this monstrosity there. We certainly appreciate that, because this we always knew that there was going to be some development in this area, this cornfield basically. We just didn't know exactly what was going to happen there. So while we understand that there's going to be a development, we're a little concerned about this multi-family zoning that's being proposed. By best accounts, if you're going to put 14 people or 14 units per acre, you're looking at over 700 units in this 51-acre parcel. It can go up, if you max that out, it's going to go over 900 units for this 51 acres. By comparison, the HOA has 634 single-family homes that covers 6 parcels, okay? I don't know exactly the acres, total acres that it is. But we're a little concerned about the congestion at this corner at Yuma and Estrella Parkway. During the school years, this South Goodyear West Boulevard gets packed up all the way to South 157th Avenue, which gets packed because Desert Star is letting out about the same time that Desert Edge High School is letting out. So we're really concerned about the congestion of this area. Again, we don't mind that this parcel is being developed, but we really prefer that this thing stays single-family homes. Because if you look at anything from Estrella Parkway all the way to Saraval and then south, that's all single-family homes. So this is not going to blend in with the adjacent single-family homes that are part of the Estrella Vista HOA or any other part of those homes associations that they go all the way to Saraval. Well, that's pretty much it. I don't want to take a whole lot of time, but again, we would prefer that this remain a single-family home development rather than a multifamily development. Any questions? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the audience that would like to speak on this topic? All right. Thank you for coming out tonight and speaking your mind on this. We need more citizens to come out and see these. Realize that this is an advisory council, commission, and we definitely want you to come back to the city council meeting on this topic. When is the next city council meeting? September 26th. Come on out and have your voice be heard in that meeting as well. Thank you. With that, no other cards, I will close the public hearing. I will need a motion and a second and then have commission discussion on these, on this topic. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the Vlux multifamily?
I'd like to hear some feedback on Christian. I know we had the 3 projects and I reviewed all of them and I remember twice seeing traffic impact analysis discussed. One of them, they did defer that till later, and I don't recall if this was specifically the project. But in reference to the comment that was made, I'm curious to understand if there's more or less average daily traffic expected from this than a commercial or the original density of commercial that was proposed. And then I have another question relative as well.
Sure. So the original project that was proposed would have allowed for more than 2,000 units to be built on this parcel, and it would have also allowed for 70,000 square feet of retail.
And how many units do we have with this one?
This one, the rate, what you're seeing on the screen here is less than 570. So the density of this development is approximately 1/4 of what is entitled there today. So by right today, it's entitled for residential and retail, the residential being multifamily in nature, and then the retail obviously, or again, having, 70,000 square feet. So if you think about a Walmart, that's about 150 or 125,000 square feet. So half a Walmart could go in here, if you will.
So in essence, there's significant reduction in potential traffic with this development.
That is correct. And then Estrella Parkway and Yuma Road are both scenic arterials, so their ultimate plan is 3 lanes in each direction with decel lanes at the appropriate locations. Goodyear Boulevard was down classified. It was going to be a city center arterial. That was modified in December of 2021. But this development is proposing a major collector, so that would be similar to Monte Vista up here, where it's 2 lanes in each direction with a median. So as of today, hearing the residents' comments about the traffic backing up. Today, that is a 1 lane in each direction with the center turn lane. This will be upgraded to 2 lanes in each direction with a median.
With signal improvements as well.
With signal improvements, the intersection at Yuma and Yuma and Goodyear Boulevard West will ultimately be improved.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And you had another question to follow up with that?
We covered it there.
Oh, perfect. All right, excellent.
Christian, could you address the gentleman's concern about commercial and walkability in this area?
Sure. I'll speak specifically to this zoning case that in working with the applicant on this, the city had encouraged the applicant to, and they agreed to, provide those pedestrian connections that I called out. So residents in this development will not have to, in a typical subdivision or a typical multifamily, you might have the one entrance, the main drive-in, and maybe one fire safety road with a pedestrian connection out the main driveway. This one will have a lot of pedestrian connections to the adjacent streets. The intent there was that hopefully those residents, instead of getting in their cars, would walk out the gates and then walk to one of the signals to cross. As it relates to commercial in this area, the Ballpark Village, or Ballpark, where the actual Goodyear Ballpark is, there actually is retail space that is available today there. The city's working on a process for that as we speak, and that land is also entitled, so 53 acres of commercial entitlement exist. So from this development, they're approximately 250 feet to where future commercial could be. And then catty corner from this development, there are 9 acres of commercial opportunity, and it's looking right now like that developer is proposing approximately 43,000 square feet of commercial.
Are we on the verge of seeing something from that developer? Because I'm in the sense of, in the short time I've been here, we did just work on the other side of the street, and it is a gated product, so it is quite a bit of housing.
Sure.
So
The market is changing, but I'll tell you that they've indicated to the city they're very eager to move forward with some commercial development.
good. Thank you.
Are there any other discussion points? Thank you, Christian, and excellent clarifying questions. Thank you. I have a motion and I have a second, and with that discussion, please put in your vote.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And as I said before, please stop by and see us again on the 26th for City Council if you would like your voice heard again. This is not the final act at all. They'll be voting on that on the 26th. All right, last agenda item is Las Palmas rezone, and I will open the public hearing. And it's the Christian Williams show today, so
It is.
carry on.
Standing between you and your dinner, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. I'm here with a request from the applicant, Howard Weinstein, to conduct a rezoning on 273 acres of property within the city. That property is located in central Goodyear in an area we call West Goodyear. It is located on the far west side of the screen in the upper left. You'll see a red square around an area. That is the 273 acres. That is southwest of Citrus Road and Roosevelt. And it's currently zoned PAD and is entitled to a maximum of 750 homes. And just so you know where Roosevelt Street is, that's halfway between Van Buren and McDowell. So we'll zoom in a little closer because I know that map's not the easiest to read. The property is south of Roosevelt Street and large county development. It's north of Van Buren as well as the RID Canal and an RV park. It is west of the Innovation Center. In particular, that area of Innovation Center is entitled for underlying use of business, park, and retail. And it is east of Perryville Road as well as a strip of large lot county properties. It does not fall within the accident potential zone or the 65 DNL. However, the property does fall within the military vicinity boundary. And as such, as previously agreed to with Luke Air Force Base, this property will be maxed at 750 homes, as was stated in the previous zoning cases. And as you'll notice in the stipulations, there are stipulations to address notifications of that condition. So, quick abbreviated history. In 2005, the property was zoned Las Palmas Final PAD, called for 750 units and a water campus. There were 8 different lot sizes, from as small as court homes as up to 115 foot wide by 175 foot deep lots. Haven't heard of that since 2005. And today, the applicant seeks a master plan community with 4 zoning districts, and I will detail those on the next slide. So the applicant is seeking to replace the Las Palmas Final PAD with the Las Palmas at West Goodyear zoning case today. And as it states in the narrative that you received, Lennar is the builder. That is not true. Lennar did initiate this case with the help of the landowner. However, just like any zoning case, anyone can bring forward a zoning case, entitle land, and lots get sold to different home builders or a new developer comes in. So this case is no different. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. But I do want to tell you that any zoning that's put on this property tonight follows with the land. So if a new home builder comes in, or Lennar comes back, or multiple home builders come in, or commercial developer comes in, they're held to the zoning case that you might be approving tonight, or recommending for approval tonight, potentially. So this development proposes 137 acres of R14 underlying zoning with reduced standards as found in the PAD overlay, 91 acres of R16, 38 acres of commercial, or C2 commercial to be specific, with some modifications, and 7.1 acres of public facility district for a proposed water campus at the northwest portion of this site. And the PAD modifies certain elements and codifies certain amenities, connectivity elements, and streetscape elements to make this one cohesive master plan community. I'll highlight a few of the modifications. So all R14 lots within the development shall be a minimum of 40 feet wide and have a depth of 95 feet and have a minimum square footage of 4275, have a rear setback of 15 feet. 30% of those lots will be considered extended lots. They'll be 45 feet wide, and 50% of those lots will be 115 feet deep with 20-foot depth setbacks. Covered patios in this development will all need to be 100 square feet, but those could be 8 by 12 or things of that nature, so the minimum depth is 8. And effectively, there's 2 types of R14 lots to make product diversity, R16 lots. And homes within this development are entitled to, or would be entitled to, 2 kitchens in the event the builder would like to construct a mother-in-law suite or a home within a home. There are strict provisions to receive that, such as they must be attached to the main structure, connected access to that structure, no separate driveways or separate metering for those buildings, and no separately fenced yards. The C2 parcel will have a height limit of 30 feet as opposed to 56 feet, which a normal C2 would have. There are some restricted uses, such as adult-oriented establishments, bus terminals, pawn shops, hotels, and motels. However, there are some additional allowances, such as a brew pub and storage buildings with some strict requirements on design elements, and those storage units would need to be the northern half of the site, not the southern half, and a maximum of 20% of that center could be storage, so you don't get the whole center as storage. But that would be a use by right. If the county properties are residentially zoned adjacent to it to the west, by the time the C2 wants to develop, they would be required to put in an 80-foot landscape tract and buffer between them and those residential properties. So let's discuss some more details of the PAD overlay. From amenity standpoint, there's a 9-acre central park that will be located in the middle of the community. That 9-acre park will include a pool, parking lot, showers, pool deck with lounge chairs, restrooms, dining pavilions, athletic courts and fields, game areas, trail connections, walkways, and benches. The development will also include 4 pocket parks throughout the neighborhood that will all include tot lots, shade pavilions, and picnic tables and barbecue areas and walkways. And the developer will construct a trail along the RID. There's a picture of a trail in the middle, so it'll be more like an equestrian trail. That would go from Citrus Road down to approximately Van Buren Street at the entrance to that property. I'll show you a map in another slide so you can get a real nice visual of it. And on the left, you'll see a conceptual layout of the central amenity park. I will note that if the developer opts to donate land to the Liberty Elementary School District for a school, their 9-acre park may be reduced to 7 acres. Speaking about connectivity elements, this infill development will include an 8-foot wide decomposed granite trail that will run along the western portion of the property. So if you see that red line that kind of runs up and snakes around, that will be a trail that connects to that RID trail that you see on the bottom that goes east-west. Those trails must remain open, non-gated, and accessible to the general public to utilize those facilities. So if you're in the other West Goodyear areas and taking that bridle path up Citrus and cross over, you can utilize this trail to continue on. Or the residents to the north could take their horses on that trail. That's a provision of the zoning. Again, we talked about lot diversity with the R14s, so the 2 different types of product. That would count also as a connectivity element. And all the R14 streets, when they are platted, cannot exceed 660 feet so that there are small blocks and interesting nodes. To highlight some streetscape elements, similar to other West Goodyear properties, this development will take on the West Goodyear name, have trees planted along Citrus every 25 feet. We'll have rail fencing incorporated at the entrances. Those are some of those elements. The additional 3 streetscape elements, as is traditional with all of our other zoning cases, will be determined at the preliminary plat. But the original developer offered up elements such as porches and courtyards for 50% of the homes, paver driveways on some of the homes, and detached sidewalks that included a street tree between the sidewalk and the curb. Those are some items that would get them to those streetscape elements points that are required for the R14 reduced standards. To date, the city has not received any formal resident opposition on this case, only general inquiries. At the neighborhood meeting, residents voiced concerns about flooding that occurs already in the county area, and the developer spoke about how that would be mitigated or improved once this property was, removed from floodplains and drainage was effectively managed on this flat property that currently, sheet flows into the street. Staff has evaluated the impacts of the proposed zoning on the greater community, and with no major concerns being found, staff recommends you forward an approval recommendation to rezone the property from final planned area development to the 4 districts listed above with the PAD overlay and subject to the stipulations in the staff report. Of note, this development will build half-street improvements on the north side of Van Buren Street from east of the RID to their western boundary. They will build the south half street improvements for Roosevelt Street, which is on the north of this development. They will build the south half street improvements on Citrus Road along their property. They will pay for 25% of a signal that would be located at Citrus and Roosevelt. And they will pay for any signals that are deemed appropriate that are generated for access onto their property from Van Buren Street. So if that southern entrance, as they're proposing, cause a signal to be constructed, they would need to build that. I will make a note that we would like, if you opt to recommend approval, that you would include a stipulation. I will summarize the stipulation. I can give you a copy of it, but effectively what the stipulation is there's a water campus site that is proposed in this property. This is in the Arizona water territory. I believe there's some needs for some water campuses in that area that might come before this development occurs. And in the event that does need to occur, we would not want that water site to trigger every road improvement and signal payments and things of that nature. So let's that water campus move forward. Do I need to read this in the record, or can I provide a copy? Or
I can enter it into the minutes.
Great. I have some draft language if you have any questions about it, but that would be the request if you opt to recommend approval. Yeah, yes. I'll read it in the record. Let's see how well I can do on this. Uh-oh. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary, any of the stipulations set forth herein, the development of the PFD parcel shall not trigger the obligation to construct any of the public infrastructure owner, period. Owner is required to construct, as described in the stipulations set forth herein, including by way of example the Roosevelt Street improvements. The obligation to construct such infrastructure shall be triggered by the approval of any site plan or recordation of the first final plat or minor land division that includes any of the R14 parcel, the R16 parcel, and or the C2 parcel. Building permits, certificates of completion, temporary certificates of occupancy, and permanent certificates of occupancy will not be withheld for development within the PFD parcel simply because the public infrastructure improvements, period, owner is required to construct has not been completed. And thank you, Sarah Shilton, for writing that in 15 minutes or less.
Thank you, Christian.
Applicant is not here. Happy to answer any zoning questions you may have.
Okay, applicant is not here. Is there any questions for Christian?
Christian, you mentioned that there's a possibility of a school.
That is correct.
Can you say highly likely, and if it is there a traffic issue there?
I can't say if it's highly likely or not. The developer, the landowner have been in conversation with the school district. That's why that stipulation was written, to give them some flexibility that if they're gonna, work with them to provide a 12 to 15 acre site, that central park may need to go down in size. The school would likely be located on Roosevelt Street, which would be improved to a minor collector standard. It is very common and typical that schools are located on collector roads or arterials. And the other thing I can offer up is schools don't need a zoning per se. Schools by law are allowed in any zoning category, but when the developer and the school district were working together, they were looking at a site just east of the water campus along Roosevelt Street, apologies. Welcome.
Christian, I also just wanted to for sure understand, there's 750 units. There were previously 750 units, but we're reducing all the lot sizes. Is that because the amenities are greater? There's more passageways in between them?
That's a great question. So when we get a request to rezone properties to R14, R16, R17, we look to our zoning ordinance for guidance on that. In particular, when we're looking at R14 reduce, R16 reduce, that's where we have that point criteria that if you're gonna do smaller lots, you need to up the amenities. So you need 2 amenities, you need 4 streetscapes, you need X amount of connectivity. So when a developer comes forth and with proposals for smaller lots such as these, we then look to that as guidance and work with them collaboratively to ensure that we're codifying what those amenities will be. So that we're not zoning it and wondering, are they gonna build a pool? Are they not gonna build a pool? So that's why with a lot of these West Goodyear zonings, you're seeing them come forward and they're saying, we're gonna build a 5 acre or 6 acre park from the get-go. It's gonna have these high quality amenities. That's how they're getting to those points for those smaller lots. Because if you have a smaller yard, you need more community space.
Thank you.
Welcome. Great
Christian,
question.
You said the developer has remained the same, but the builder has backed out or changed. Can you walk me through
Sure.
what that looks like for this?
So this property in particular has 2 landowners that are collaboratively working together for entitlement. They have an attorney or a land agent that represents them. And at a certain point in time, it is my understanding that a home builder wanted to bring this forward. That home builder, I'm not sure right now if they want to develop this property or bring this property to fruition. However, the landowner was still interested in entitling the property because there may be other home builders or, once the market kind of adjusts from what is happening right now, they're then ready to go for building. So from a city standpoint and from a zoning standpoint, we're in the forever business. Mm-hmm. So our land use decisions that we make, that you recommend and that council ultimately make, run with the land. So regardless of whoever that builder does ultimately become, we're gonna ensure that those amenities, those high quality amenities and connectivity elements that we're talking about tonight run with the land. And that could happen before a P&Z meeting in any case or after.
If we recommend though, you feel that this is a really solid, of course staff does, but this won't change in the future if the builder goes, well, I really don't want to build that, or I don't want to do this.
Here's what I would tell them. I'd say, well, that's very nice that you don't want to do that. However, you have a zoning ordinance, you have a P80 overlay, and if you'd like to make a change, we need to go back through the public process, and we need to notify all the residents within 500 feet, and I'm going to put up 1 billion signs on the property, and we're going to take 6 months to be here again. So that's what will happen.
Excellent. All right. Are there any other questions for staff?
Very good report.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards on the topic?
I have not received any speaker cards on this item.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this topic? All right. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I will need a motion and a second to also include the stipulation, very well said by Christian and Sarah, to make sure that is included with stipulation. I have a motion and I have a second. Please vote.
Motion passes.
And we move to recommend. Thank you so much. Are there any staff communications, our favorite part of the evening?
Oh, you don't have a microphone.
Isn't that mine?
And I don't have the dates in front of me, but all the items that you considered at the last meeting were approved with this, and the One Thrive preliminary plat did keep the stipulation as recommended by this commission, and that was just approved this past Monday night. Other than that, I don't have any communications. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on October 12th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Goodyear City Hall Council Chambers. There being no further business to discuss, this meeting is adjourned.